Well, welcome to the BBC Security Brief with me, Ben Brown. And Europe's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, has been sounding the alarm on Russia's increasing use of chemical weapons in Ukraine, citing German and Dutch intelligence reports that Moscow has used chemical weapons at least 9,000 times since the start of the invasion. Speaking to reporters after a gathering of foreign affairs ministers in Brussels, she said the reports were of great concern. Well, with me to discuss all of this and also the latest details on US weapon shipments to Ukraine is our resident security analyst, former senior British military officer and assault helicopter pilot in the British military, Mikey. And as always, Mikey will deliver his brief as he would to his generals. So, Mikey, let's start off then with what Kaja Kallas has been saying. And more about these reports. Do the German and Dutch intelligence agencies that I was mentioning there, do they cite exactly which chemical weapons have been used?
Yeah, they do. I'll start off by saying there are four categories, Ben, of chemical weapon. You've got choking agents, you've got blister agents, you've got blood agents, and you've got nerve agents. Now, the Dutch and German intelligence report that we're looking at cites chloropicrin as one of the chemical agents being used extensively, which falls in the choking agent part of those categories, and its use goes back to World War I. So it's been used significantly in the past. It basically irritates the nose, the throat, the lungs, and when inhaled and used in high concentrations, it can be lethal, especially in enclosed spaces. Let's go slide. So, reports indicate that Russia is using quadcopter-style drones. You can see this is a quadcopter-style drone on there, and it's got a munition below it. And they're using sort of this style of approach to drop the chloropicrin onto Ukrainian troops in trenches. Now, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say that 3 deaths of Ukrainian soldiers are attributable to those chemical weapons. But you've also got to look at the indirect fatalities when you're sort of assessing this capability. But when this chemical weapon is deployed, it will effectively smoke Ukrainian forces out of the trenches, which then means they can be targeted by conventional weapons. So, you know, there are 2 aspects to the use of this. And this month alone, the UK contributed £400,000 to the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons to enhance Ukraine's resilience against these style of attacks, both in terms of equipment, both in terms of training and in expertise.
Now, this might sound like a naive question, but isn't Russia a signatory of the Chemical Weapons Convention?
Yeah, no, it's not at all. Russia is. The convention came into play in 1997, and it currently has 193 state parties. Now, of note, Israel has signed it, but it's not ratified it, and Egypt, North Korea and South Sudan have not signed it. And according to the Arms Control Association, at approximately 40,000 tons of chemical weapons, Russia also possesses the largest stockpiles in the world.
So how is Ukraine responding to all this?
Yeah, well, we're doing a bit of digging on this, and it appears through Ukrainian intelligence services targeting high-value leadership in Russia. Let's go slide. This individual is General Igor Kirillov. He was the head of the Russian military's biological and chemical weapons unit. In December 2024, Kirillov was killed along with his deputy during a blast in Moscow. A source inside Ukrainian security services said that they were war criminals and a legitimate target. So I'll let you make of that what you will.
Yeah. Let's just switch a little bit and talk about what the Trump administration have been saying, which is a bit of a change of policy on Ukraine, saying they are going to provide Ukraine with weapons, albeit paid for by NATO. But this includes the Patriot missile system.
Yeah, it's an interesting framework. And the latest framework that's been spoke about, as you said, is NATO countries providing Ukraine with the Patriot batteries, and then the US effectively sells those NATO countries replacement Patriot battery missile systems. So basically, NATO is paying for it, and the US defense industrial base benefits from it, which kind of, as you know, Ben, aligns to Trump's sort of transactional approach to foreign policy. Let's take a look at the Patriot missile system. Patriot actually stands for Phased Array Tracking Radar Intercept on target. You can see 2 batteries here. Each battery carries around 6 to 8 missile launchers capable of carrying 16 interceptors. It's long range, it can engage multiple targets. It has what's called a hit-to-kill mechanism that targets the actual warhead of the ballistic missile, which makes it effective. Let's go slide. This is a video of a Russian caliber cruise missile launch, which the Patriot is also effective against. But the Patriot missile system does have its limitations. It's 30 minutes to set up. So mobility-wise, it has a towing speed of just over 55 kilometers an hour. So both these components are relatively slow in a rapidly evolving environment. So there are limitations.
Right, so it's not perfect. Is the Patriot, for example, effective against Russia's hypersonic missiles?
Yeah, this is a good question, and for me, it's the #1 question at the moment. So hypersonic missiles can go faster than Mach 5, which is 5 times the speed of sound. In some cases, up to Mach 20 times the speed of sound. Let's take a look at an earlier evolution of hypersonic missiles. This is a MiG-31, a Russian MiG-31 Foxbat. That big white missile strapped underneath it, you can see it's pretty huge. That's the Kinzhal missile. Now, there has been a claim in 2023 that a Patriot missile battery shot down a Russian Kinzhal hypersonic missile. But in terms of more developed hypersonic missiles, like the Oreshnik, let's go slide, I'll show you what this looks like. It's pretty devastating. This is the Oreshnik hypersonic missile hitting Dnipro last November. It actually has 6 warheads and 6 submunitions per warhead, so 36 in total. And you can see the way that it's raining down on there. It's pretty devastating. There's definitely a big question in my mind when it comes to whether Patriot can target that. Would it actually be, or to what extent would it actually be effective against it? Now, each Patriot missile battery, so what we saw in that first slide with the 2 on there, that's about $1 billion a pop. Each missile is 3.3 million a unit per missile. So it's expensive, and there are only around 650 made a year. So if we assume that the Patriot missile system will form part of Trump's proposed Golden Dome defense missile system, and then look at all of the NATO countries and the countries outside of NATO that use the Patriot, the numbers alone in terms of how many being made and what the demand is, I think that will impose limitations on Ukraine.
Yeah, and limitations, what about drones? Because, I mean, Russia is using thousands of drones to attack Ukraine, isn't it? Is the Patriot effective against drones?
So in the later models, the answer is yes. So it's pretty effective against ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. In the latest, drones are really sort of coming into it, and glide. But it's not just drones; it's glide bombs as well that need to be taken into consideration here. And basically, both the drone and glide bomb are being used to overwhelm Ukrainian air defences. Let's take a look at some of the drones. Let's go slide, please. Great. This is a Shahed 136. It's an Iranian-made drone. It's been shot down. It's called a one-way attack uninhabited aerial vehicle. But Iran have also sold the blueprints to this drone to Russia. So Russia now make them locally as well and call them something else, the Geran 2, I think it is. This drone travels at around 120 miles an hour, which is relatively slow, has a much lower radar section, but it is easy to shoot down. But the strategy that Putin is using on these drones is based on overwhelming with numbers. So one of these drones is effectively 1/100th of the cost of a Patriot interceptor at 3.3 million. So in June alone, Russia launched 5,000 Shahed-style drones on Ukraine, 5,000 in 1 month, and over 700 in 1 night. So you can sort of see that the cost-exchange ratio is not just untenable, it's unrealistic.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be enough Patriot missiles to deal with those thousands coming in. You mentioned glide bombs as well, and I know for the Ukrainian population, they are especially terrifying, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're being used extensively. 1,000 glide bombs were launched by Russia in just 1 week, which is, absolutely going to overwhelm Patriot interceptors. Let's take a look at what these glide bombs are. Slide. This is a Russian Fab 3000 glide bomb being launched from a Russian jet. So you can see the jet on the top of the picture there. That's what's called a Sukhoi 34. Just below it, you can see the glide bomb. Now, that particular glide bomb, that's a 3,000 kilogram bomb or 6,600 pounds bomb. So it's big, and it's got the ability to be devastating. It's very cheap. It's conventional dumb bomb, which means it's non-guided. But then when you strap a kit onto it, namely wings, which you can kind of see there, you can see some fins sticking out the back, and then you put satellite guidance on it, it becomes way more deadly because it becomes more accurate. Now, the problem with a glide bomb in terms of countering it, the glide bomb is hard to detect because it doesn't have propulsion. It's a glide bomb, and therefore it's got no heat signature, so you're not going to pick it up thermally, or it's harder. And it's also got a low radar cross-section. So these are being launched by Russian jets that are sitting back from the Ukrainian enemy front lines, and they're just being tossed over into Ukraine with relative impunity, actually.
Let's just stand back a bit and talk about the wider arms package that America's proposing, or Donald Trump's talking about. So we've talked a lot about the Patriot missiles, but they're essentially defensive, aren't they? They're not going to win Ukraine the war against Russia. So what else might they be hoping for or getting from the United States in terms of arms supplies?
Yeah, and these are the conversations that will be going around the chiefs in Europe, in NATO. It's not, as you say, it's not just about a defensive capability. It's how do I get ahead of those attacks coming into Ukraine? So you'll remember the ATACMS deep strike surface-to-surface missile that was pretty much the centre of conversation towards the back end of the Biden administration. It's got a range of about 300 kilometres, and Zelensky finally got approval. You remember that they were trying to get approval to use these ATACMS missiles. It finally got it in November 2024. So let's take a look at the ATACMS slide. You can see the battery there. This is a HIMARS launcher that can carry a multitude of missiles and rockets, including ATACMS. Now, this is a really interesting piece of video. You can see the HIMARS launcher. You can see what looks like 6 green roundels. That basically, anyone looking at that on the Russian side would think that there are 6 rockets in there. But as this thing pops open, you can see effectively the ATACMS missile coming out of it. So anyone looking at the battlefield, any Russian intelligence looking at on the battlefield, isn't be able to see directly what's inside that launcher, which obviously makes it harder for them to counter. Now, why these are important, why the ATACMS missiles are important, if we go back to the glide bomb conversation, what this does is it gives Zelensky the capability to strike Russian aircraft on the ground that are being used to launch these glide bombs. However, he had them a long time ago. They haven't been replenished, and it wouldn't surprise me, and indications are that the ATACMS missile will be part of this package.